how great it feels tonight on a Wednesday night to be here and feel just as if I am in Los Angeles. Let's give it up for our city. So when I was first asked to do this panel, I saw the lineup of amazing culinary talent, and I thought, you know, we'd be talking about kind of what's going on here and what it's been like in 2025. And then I actually read the program and thought, oh, okay, I need to study a little bit. And because I'm a nerd, when I was studying about the Columbus Exchange, I was kind of blown away by so much cruelty and how that cruelty turned into so much beauty, really, after centuries of digestion. But before we get into that, I want to start the evening off by asking Gilbert what it was like to go to Paris and represent LA, and just to tell us a little bit about that experience.
Hi, thank you. Before anything, thank you so much for everybody, to everybody for being here on a Wednesday night. The turnout is amazing. Really warms my heart to see everybody out here coming out to listen to some chefs talk about random stuff. Paris was great. Paris was fun. It was a real honor to get to go down there and represent Los Angeles in this cultural exchange. It was my first time in France.
How amazing.
Yeah, it was super cool. I think if the first time you go to France, you go for something like that, and you know you have people showing you around the town, and it's a really, really great way to explore the city for the first time. But it was really nice to see the level of curiosity and how open and embracing Parisians were to processes like nixtamalization and making tostadas raspadas, a genuine curiosity of what those things are and how they're made. It was a lot of fun also going down there and getting to work with a different set of ingredients and exploring their produce and seafood, which was challenging at times. And then to get to step into the kitchen of a fellow Mexicano who set up shop in Paris and is doing a very personal version of what Mexican food is to him, according to his journey, his upbringing, and just his life journey that took him from Mexico to Paris. Getting a chance to work with him and cook beside him, doing that tasting menu was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'd do it again.
So from that lovely thing, I just want to sort of lay out here what the Columbus Exchange is. So we have like a little bit of context for some of the questions I'm going to be asking everybody. So it was a massive, world-altering transfer of plants, animals, people, microbes, and ideas between the Americas and the rest of the world. It's one of the most consequential events in human history, a reshaping of diets, populations, and ecosystems on every continent. The historian who coined the term Columbus Exchange in 1972 sees it as actually the beginning of the modern world, a pivot point when isolation between hemispheres ended and a single interconnected human ecosystem emerged. And one of the things that I find so interesting about that statement is that I feel like LA is a living, breathing example of a giant pot in which things come in from individuals, from families, from your neighbor down the street, get stirred up and then get expressed through individuals who have incredible skill. And I was wondering if Gilbert again would just start us off by talking a little bit about mestizaje and what it means.
Yeah, mestizaje it's a really beautiful word. It's the basis of our culture. It means that who we are as Mexicans is the result of our indigenous roots and then different influences that have come in different eras. So the Spanish and French, and in my particular case, being from Yucatan and other parts of Mexico and Latin America also, Lebanese. These influences change they change our culture, they change our language, and they fundamentally change our diets and our food. The mestizaje, being Mexican, is being a mestizo, is embracing that we come from indigenous roots. Mine are Mayan. I did my ancestry, and I am 42% Mayan. Yeah, it's high, right? It's hot. But at the end of the day, somos mestizos, no? And we're very proud of that, and it is the result of conquest and colonization and adaptation and assimilation. Our history is not always pretty, but it is what it is, and it's what led us to our current identity as mestizos and Mexicanos.
So I just want to say that the other day I ran into Gilbert at another event, and we were kind of just talking about this event. And I asked him, I said, what do you really want to talk about? And he said to me, what Mexicans think are Mexican, but aren't really. And just to kind of put that in perspective, in the Columbus Exchange, the animals that came to the Americas are horses, cattle, pigs, sheep, goats, and chickens, none of which were native to the Americas, and crops, wheat, rice, sugarcane, coffee, bananas, citrus, and olives. So all of these terrific chefs are working with all of these ingredients that come originally from elsewhere, yet they each have their own identity and their own way of looking at it. So actually I'd like Arturo to talk a little bit, because you work with wheat, because you're a baker. And I'd love for you to just talk about, you actually gave me a question to ask that I thought was so smart. So Gusto bread famously uses heritage grains and natural fermentation. Do you see that as a way of reclaiming or re-indigenizing wheat, making it part of like a longer, deeper story of Mexican food?
First of all, I just want to say I'm no expert.
None of us are.
Spokesperson for the culture. I am just a baker, So I'll tell you about my experience, and I think for me, yeah, baking, it's a wisdom tradition, and I see it more as that. It's like for anyone that can grow wheat, it's a grass, just like maize, just like corn, it's a grass, and humans have tended to these grasses, and we've cultivated them for centuries, and we built civilizations around them. And so sourdough to me is just, anyone has access to it. If you have some wheat flour, and no matter where you're on the world, you can ferment it and you have wild yeast. And that is a wisdom tradition to me that I'm a part of. That's a human experience. And I think, yes, I embrace working with wheat as a descendant from a Mexican family here in California. Wheat was planted in the 1600s, I think, and so it's just as much, we've preserved some of those genetics here. And so working with heritage grains for me was trying to discover that, like, well, what wheat was unique to this area that was planted, and is that seed still around? And the answer is yes, and it's Sonora wheat, and I think we need to be eating more of that if we're embracing wheat as a part of our diets and integrating it into our culture today. So, because bakers in Mexico and all over the world have made bread so cultural. It's amazing, right? So I guess, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where my mind goes with that.
I love that.
I have a question for Arturo.
Yeah.
So you work with wheat, that's like your main medium, but you also find ways of working masa and nixtamalized corn into your wheat products. I think that's absolutely fascinating and something that I was unfamiliar with until I went to your bakery. Could you tell us a little bit about why and how and where that came from?
Thanks for hijacking my next question.
So actually, I wanted to give credit to Carlos Salgado of Taco Maria, and his staff brought me they brought me a couple pounds of fresh masa they ground that morning when I was baking out of my house, and the aromas and just the feel of the dough. I think I was mixing dough that day. When they brought that to me, my reaction wasn't. It was one to make tortillas and sopes, but with the rest, it was like throw it in some bread dough and see what happens. And I even fermented it with some of my sourdough. I just was crazy, like really in love with the aromas, and that's when I realized, wow, this is like baking with wheat and corn and fusing them together in this way. It's like combining these wisdom traditions, like nixtamalization, right? And like sourdough and nixtamal have these roots and these wisdom traditions of, being able to do that no matter where you are in the world.
I love that, and it's also combining different parts of yourself into a singular expression.
Exactly, and that's when I got wheat and corn tattooed on me.
There you go. Chuy, I'd like you, if you could speak a little bit to the balance of indigenous ingredients, working with indigenous ingredients and French technique, what we think of as being techniques that are sort of part of fine dining.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of my cooking, a lot of my experience, a lot of where I am in my life now has kind of happened naturally through my upbringing, through my experience, through experiencing life as a Mexican American. And a lot of times, maybe more conscious of it now as an adult, but a lot of times as a younger person and as a younger cook coming up, it was, finding that balance about myself. As an American, as a Mexican, my parents obviously coming from Mexico, and kind of understanding, who I am. And then once I started cooking, that outlet became very much my ability to express myself. So finding that balance is very natural, but also very, very much, a decisive part of my story. In that I went to culinary school, I went to classically trained French culinary school, which is what most of the culinary schools are around the world that are kind of most prevalent, use French technique, and a lot of that having to do with the exchange happening at the time when the French were kind of the first to, document and recipe make and translate that through their discoveries around the world. At that point, essentially, what is Mexican, what is American, or what is European influence is kind of the big question. And that's always been the big question for me. When I grew up in El Paso, I grew up in a place where I was speaking Spanish, but most of my friends were speaking English. I could see across the border to Mexico, but kind of making all of that sense to me was something that became very natural. And I think that becomes a very beautiful thing about how we're able to express ourselves as culinarians. I love the word that you used right now about being wisdom tradition. Because for me, it becomes very hard as a Mexican American sometimes to say, this is Mexican and this is this technique, but I'm Mexican American. How much do I really, have ownership over this? All of that comes from my teachings and from my learnings. Most of my learning has come from culinary school, from the industry that I work in, but most of my Mexican learning has come from indigenous cooks, from indigenous chefs. I credit most Lucho Arellano from Oaxaca, who is really taught me the most. So I think for me, it's really finding that balance, not only in your creativity, but also in your life and what that really means to you.
And now I've saved Fatima for last for a reason, because I think what she's doing in some ways is the most profound. And that is working with a material, masa, that comes from a grain, maize, that has been the most resistant to colonization and erasure. Although it's difficult right now. And I'm wondering, Fatima, if you could explain what you've been doing, your path, and what you want the eaters to understand as you feed them with these wonderful dishes that you've made from different varieties of corn. Maybe just start by saying what it is that you do that's unique.
Hi, thank you for coming. So in Comal, when we spoke about the corn, sorry, my English is very well, but
Your English is great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. When we spoke about the corn, I'm learning from my family. I'm part of Mexico City. I'm part from Oaxaca, my family. And in Oaxaca, we have very present the corn. And when we spoke the corn, hablamos de nuestros ancestros. Somos la resistencia, los que trabajamos con el maíz criollo. Justamente Comal se trata the preservation for the biodiversity of corn. We use different types of corn. We work with farmers in Mexico, and it's very important preserve, and we need to speak about the corn because the transgenic corn is very
It's a moment of fragility right now with corn.
Sorry? Yes. So the people, when we work with the corn, the 90% for the corn is transgenic corn. And we need to preserve the heirloom corn because when you eat in the taco, you support a lot of families in Mexico. You support a lot of tradition in Mexico. You feel when you eat one taco, here specifically, you try the tortilla and you feel a lot of cheers behind this project. And sorry,
No, hablo en español.
Okay. Cuando hablamos de maíz criollo, pues justamente es lo que estamos haciendo, la preservación del maíz, ayudando a comunidades que justamente.
So when we talk about heirloom corn, what we're talking about is of preserving traditions and supporting farmers and people in Mexico that are growing it.
Pero al mismo tiempo, lo que buscamos en Comal es justamente la preservación del maíz criollo. Yo siempre he comparado el maíz con el vino, porque
So she's saying that what they're trying to achieve at Comal is to promote the preservation of these varieties of corn, and that she sees parallels with between corn and wine.
How many? Let me just jump in. How many varieties of heirloom corn are you working with?
In Mexico we have 64, pero nativas son 59, de las cuales en Comal hemos trabajado alrededor de 35 razas.
So there's 64 varieties of corn. Of those, 59 are native varieties to Mexico. So las otras 5 que son híbridos?
No.
No. Anyway, and at Comal, sorry, I have so many questions. And at Comal, so far in the time that they've been open, they've worked with 34 varieties of corn.
Yeah, and absolutely is very important because en este momento el maíz criollo lo estamos perdiendo. Por cada raza de maíz que perdemos muchas cadenas alimenticias. Justamente pues hablamos del calentamiento global, que la tierra es muy importante para nosotros. Cuando cultivan el maíz no solamente es masa, son historias, es trabajo de mucha gente que trabaja en el campo y que desgraciadamente no les pagan bien.
So as we lose varieties of corn in Mexico, it's not only the corn that we're losing, but we're losing history, we're losing stories, we're losing communities that historically have depended on it.
And I would say that using Arturo's wisdom tradition idea, it's losing some of the most profound wisdom tradition that there is in Mexico. Do you want to talk about Claudia Scheinbaum's new initiative?
Yeah. So this is good for Mexico, for the maíz criollo. Es un tratado que se llama TEMEC en México. Estamos hablando de que justamente la presidenta en este momento es una ley de cual no se puede, se redujo comprar maíz transgénico, y en el artículo 427 de estos apartados pues justamente dice: sin maíz no hay país. Y es justamente lo que estamos hablando. Si se introduce mucho maíz transgénico en México, perdemos todo, perdemos nuestra historia.
So Fatima is talking about a new initiative by Mexico's current president to limit the amount of genetically modified corn that is allowed to be imported or brought into Mexico. ¿Cuánto? El 70% históricamente, últimamente. It's about 70% of the corn that has been consumed in Mexico recently is genetically modified.
And comes from here. And
Right.
comes from here. So it's also a huge political issue and an issue of displacement, because it's giant American companies that are growing transgenic corn and then selling it over the border, displacing small farmers. And I just want to say here, every tortilla you buy in a supermarket comes from pretty much one company, Gruma. And I know it's really hard, but to source tortillas in a different way, but I just want to put just a bug in your ear right now to just be aware of that. Just be aware that every time you reach for a packet of corn in a corn tortillas in a supermarket, you are buying this transgenic corn that has been basically dumped in Mexico.
Yeah, the 90% for the corn here in USA is transgenic corn. And absolutely, this corn is a lot of GMO. Maseca is a lot of chemicals inside, a lot of colors, sugars, and is super bad for us. And when we spoke the heirloom corn, is only we use limestone from Puebla. The limestone is very important too. The same with the corn, and corn and water. That's it. Compared to other companies, when they say yes, organic, it's organic corn, but no, it's heirloom corn. It's very different. It's a lot of difference between transgenic, heirloom, and híbrido.
I wanted Arturo to chime in here because he has thoughts also about masarina, right?
Well, you know, this idea, let's keep going with this wisdom of tradition thing. So, nixtamalization is, like Fatima was saying, is when you cook corn in an alkaline bath, and it's common practice to use limestone and from certain regions, and it's a very beautiful thing. However, you can use wood ash, and I think that's perhaps how it was discovered. I don't know, again, I'm no expert, but I think maybe some ash fell in the pot and we saw that nixtamalization happened, you know? So, yeah, so to me that's important to preserve and to educate people about, because masa harina, to me, it's the product that's made with nixtamalized corn, and then they turn it into a flour. And with maybe rising interest, it does make it easier for you, but I see that as sort of an erasure of the culture, or erasure of this wisdom tradition. If we only switch to this flour, this commodity flour kind of thing, that's what Maseca has done. They've erased the culture and erased the wisdom about nixtamal. So what Fátima is doing is like, it's incredible work, and we should be eating fresh nixtamal versus, I think, masa harina. It's more convenient, but sometimes what's convenient isn't always the better decision.
Sort of the short answer or the short response is we all get what we deserve, right? So we should work a bit harder and value traditional ways a bit more, especially in this moment when finding the center is just unbelievably difficult. You want to?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to interject a little bit about what Chef Fátima is doing, and I think oftentimes there's this misconception. I know we're talking about it here, and there's some percentages being talked about, but there is this misconception that people in Mexico are eating the beautiful heirloom corn that's available in restaurants like Fátima. But the work that Fátima is doing is incredibly important, and oftentimes sometimes seen as something novel, or maybe just a Mexican restaurant going a little bit of an extra mile to have this really nice product. But she is directly supporting the farmers' families, their ability to also pass on those traditions to them, and not have to seek out some other form of work, some other form of making ends meet, and on top of the direct support that she's providing to the farmers and to the creators out there in Mexico. She's also providing an incredible platform, and having the amount of education that she speaks with is incredibly impressive, and something that when I first came into Mexican food and first started working with nixtamal was, I used to say it to my cooks that I hope for one day cooks to come up to us with as much interest in masa as they do in pasta making, as they do in other forms of cuisine. And Fátima is really at the forefront of that, and we're really seeing it happen, and it's inspiring for sure.
So Evan, you asked Chuy about Mexican ingredients, but like French technique or European technique. I'm just gonna talk a little bit more about Fátima and Comal. I think what she does is extraordinary, not just because her food's amazing and porque es mi comadre. But Fátima does something that I really admire. She's working with masa. That's her main medium for what she does, and she's really she's avoiding leaning into European technique, and she's using masa and Mexican tradition as really the only paintbrushes in her toolkit, and still making amazing food that is not only delicious, but is really telling a story that hasn't been told that well outside of Mexico. I think for a very long time in Mexico, also in Mexico, there was this trend to consider traditional Mexican food like tamales and nixtamal to be of a lesser tier, a lower tier, food to feed the masses for common people. And elevated Mexican food always had these hints of
continental cuisine.
Yes, right? And in technique, and in plating, and even in ingredients. That started to shift, and it's amazing right now to see traditional and indigenous ingredients and techniques being presented how they're supposed to be, and that being considered an elevated form of Mexican cuisine. And it's really hard to do. Like, I don't think I can do anything. Like, I need sea urchin and scallops and fish to make food that is enough for me and for my style. She's doing it with corn and beans, which is amazing.
But it's more than ingredients, it's also the way you cook them, right? So there's a difference between steaming and braising and roasting, right? Do you want to talk about that, Chuy?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we know today in the restaurant setting maybe is quite different than the initial format in which food was cooked in general across the globe. And you can imagine, especially when we're talking about things like nixtamal, old world techniques like that, at a certain point, once restaurants started to be created, we also wanted to have nixtamal in the restaurants. We also wanted to have moles in the restaurant. So I think there had to be a curiosity and a bit of creativity into how do we translate this into something that maybe hasn't existed here in the Western world, but on the other side of the world before all of these, before things had kind of evolved over here. There eventually had to be some format of feeding the masses, and how do we become smarter with that? How do we become, again, all of this coming through creativity, but I think that's when the use of braises and large cooking techniques and things like this that weren't traditionally Mexican start to make a little bit more sense. I guess the most common and the easiest example would be the carnitas, confying pork in its own fat. Something we want to do to feed lots of people, and that technique is obviously a French technique, but has now become one of the most traditional Mexican dishes that you can find.
I love how things constantly shift and change. So I'm going to kind of drop a bomb here. Arturo posed a question to me that I thought was very, very interesting. You said one of the things you wanted to talk about was, are we preserving food traditions or diluting them for palatability and profit?
Yeah, it's sort of this idea of like the masarina taking over, and that's actually what's damaged a lot of the tortilla industry, is that these, geo-modified corn products, and then these companies, they're government subsidized, and they would make you switch. This happened in a lot of tortillerias in Mexico, right? They made them switch. They gave them supplies and said, if you use this brand of flour, this is how easy. You buy this machine. And it was government subsidized. And I think that's what's done a lot of damage, unfortunately, and a lot of people rely on this now. So I think that's where unfortunately it's like this product that's...
It's seductive.
Yes. And so that's, again, why I feel like the work like a lot of these chefs are doing, and what we try to do at our bakery is just keep the tradition alive that's greater than this convenient flour product.
So we're gathered here in the middle of Los Angeles. We've had the city bird flying overhead occasionally. I don't think we can ignore the moment we're in, this really strange moment of sort of waking up every day and living a kind of dissociated reality of horror and pain, and then having to go to work and do what you have to do. And I know this is a painful moment, but if you could share a bit about the resilience you're seeing around you, and particularly in our field, the field of restaurants, with both workers and people who are coming to eat. If anybody wants to speak to that, I think would be welcome.
I mean, this year is definitely, it's been very tough, right? Obviously, we started the year with the fires, but the political climate that we're operating in right now is, I think it's turning 2025 into one of the most challenging moments that restaurants have seen. And this is not just in Southern California. This is in every community of the United States. that has a significant immigrant population. We are an industry, we are a country that is run, that is powered by immigrants. That's always been the case. Immigrants serve food, cook your food, wash dishes, cultivate the fields,
Clean your houses.
clean your houses.
Fix everything in your house, build your houses, do the landscaping.
Everything. I can tell you, if I didn't have access to my Paisa workforce, I'm gone. I'm not staying, you know? I can't. So it's been very challenging for our family, and by family I mean our employees, our restaurant workers. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and it's not just them. You know, I love this country. I think it's giving me tremendous opportunity as a Mexican, as an immigrant, as a person who just recently became a U.S. citizen under the current administration, just in time. But you know, it's really hard. It's heartbreaking when the country that you've come to love suddenly makes you feel like you're not wanted here. But our restaurant community is very resilient. I think the restaurant owners and operators and workers have been very supportive of each other. I'm seeing a lot more businesses getting together and doing collaborations and trying to create momentum for each other. And then our community is strong, and they've come out to support, even sometimes coming out to support restaurants while having to deal with the fear of being outside of their homes. This is a crazy time, and I think I think the word that we started with, mestizaje, resonates a lot with me right now. It's like this, the mixing of ideas of people, of cultures, can be a beautiful thing. Right now, it's not that.
I'm going to jump in here as the one white person up here. So my family came 100 years ago, fleeing people who wanted to kill them. And you know, I don't have a huge religious tradition I come from. I don't have a big family that I consider my tribe. I'm an Angelina. I was born here, I was raised here. Everything I know that centers me, that powers me forward, is what this city has given to me, which is made up of so many different traditions. I mean, now I talk about them in terms through a food lens, but my whole life I've been fed by Los Angeles, and I'm also a weaver. So when you weave, you interlace threads, right? Threads that go north and south, and threads that go east and west. And we talk about the fabric of a community. That metaphor is so rich for me, because if you start to tear out threads that go north and south or east and west, there is no more fabric. The fabric collapses, and I almost physically in my body cannot bear to see this city being brought to its knees like it is. Thank you for letting me say that.
You know, I'll touch on it a little bit. I think for me, I'm not from here. I'm not from Los Angeles. I'm from El Paso, Texas, a city much smaller but very similar to Los Angeles. And definitely echoing what Chef Gilberto said and about the immigrant staff that works with him, but also to my immigrant family, and it just resonating so heavily that, you know, without them, this for me would not be possible whatsoever. But getting to be here in Los Angeles, in the epicenter of what feels like the most difficult time for immigrants and for us as Americans, in this current moment in this country where, like I said, I think Los Angeles has really felt the core of it. I wouldn't choose anywhere else to be. I think it has felt a type of resilience, a type of wholeness, a type of even creativity that I've seen around the city, and not just in our industry, but amongst Angelinos in general, of how do we, get through this? How do we support each other? How do we exist while this is happening amongst us? And, as Gilberto said, the amount of support that we've felt amongst each other in our industry and as, around Angelinos in general has been some of the most heartwarming and wholesome time in my life. Yes, incredibly difficult. I'd like to go to work and, teach my cooks about nixtamal, or flip through Gilberto's cookbook, or see what's going on at the bakery and stuff like that. But right now we're talking about legislation. We're talking about how to read different types of articles that might be important to them, and how to stay aware and things like that. So, shifting a little bit, but still staying positive, still staying creative. But without the support of an incredible city like this, I think it becomes more difficult.
I think we're ready for questions. If anybody, what a beautiful grasshopper. This albino grasshopper just came. I hope it is a harbinger of good.
Yeah, I just want to stop this.
Okay, so we have a microphone here. You'll be picked out.
I would like to say first, thank you. Thank you for the beautiful culinary experience that you give us, where we can bring my family who visits Los Angeles to all of your restaurants. I get choked up, honestly, with the beauty of what you guys are doing, and it is an honor for me to be able to bring my family to your restaurant. And I applaud you 1000%. Muchísimas gracias por todo lo que hacen.
Thank you, that's very kind.
Porque todas esas tradiciones que ustedes mantienen, nosotras las podemos pasar a los demás. Entonces, yo les pido a ustedes, díganos qué podemos hacer nosotros para continuar las tradiciones que ustedes nos están compartiendo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. I would like to know where I could find some good tortillas to buy if we're not going to buy, the ones, I even go to, El Super or Superior, but obviously that's all very mass made. So where would you recommend we go to get the tortillas?
So, can I answer that? 3655 South Grand Avenue. Tortilla is, this is what I would recommend. You go to Comal and you get masa. And learn how to make your own tortillas and just make it part of a new family tradition. Making tortillas it's such a cool experience. It's another layer of connection with your food. If you're seeing the masa, you're pressing it, you're laughing because you can't get it down exactly right on the plancha and it breaks. It's really a really fun interactive process with kids. It's really fun to do. So Fátima sells wholesale and retail amazing masa made with a variety of different heirloom varieties of corn, which we're very lucky to get to use every day at Holbox. She also sells tortillas. ¿Vendes tortillas también?
Yeah, so in Comal we have a full dozen or a half dozen. Every 3 or 4 weeks depends for availability in the farmers and and the communities, we change the corn. And so if you look in the corn and you eat the tortillas one by one, depends the different colors, you can feel the difference between one corn and other corn. Sometimes the corn have the flavor yogurt, almonds, sweet, like a feel. It's a lot of flavors in the masa. It's a lot of colors. It's a lot of smells. You feel when we in the comal is really, we put the most attention absolutely in everything, but the masa is from the farmers. Sorry, quería contestar la primera pregunta. Justamente una de nuestras tradiciones ancestrales es la nixtamalización. Una de las principales técnicas mexicanas es la nixtamalización, y lo que estamos buscando aquí en Comal, y justamente en el Chef Chuy también trabaja con nixtamalización, todos creo que conocemos, pero es justo lo que queremos es que las personas se interesen más por la comida prehispánica, las técnicas, que a pesar de que pues los tiempos van cambiando día a día, sigue presente nuestras técnicas de nuestros antepasados. Y claro que sí, o sea, cada vez que podemos hablar de nixtamalización es explicar cuál es la importancia de estas técnicas ancestrales y la preservación de nuestras raíces.
Chuy, do you guys sell tortillas?
We do sell tortillas, but since we're not fully focused like the comal, we do pre-orders. So if you guys pre-order with us, we'll make them for you. But otherwise, all of our tortillas and tostadas are made in-house as well. But you need them right away, go this.
Arturo, are you going to start making tortillas?
I'd like to. I don't have the space for it right now, but I have a cool online company to recommend. I know it's random, but I went to visit his tortilleria in Kansas. He's my friend
It's
Ruben.
amazing.
You know who I'm going to say?
Yes.
It's Caramelo. And this guy Ruben from Sonora, he has this tortilleria in Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas. Me and Anna went to visit him, my partner, earlier this year, and it was fantastic. It's so amazing what he's doing. He may not keep the corn tortillas going for very long, so definitely try ordering some.
He sends them to you frozen, and they stay so well.
Is it domestic corn or Mexican?
He is actually using domestic corn, yeah.
Also, I'm just going to give a shout out. I'm sorry. Did I step on you?
You're good.
I'm going to give a shout out to the many years that KCRW did tortilla tournaments, led by the journalist Gustavo Arellano. So if you just Google KCRW, Gustavo Arellano tortilla tournament, many tortillerias will come up that are parsed in great detail about the quality of their tortillas. They're all over Southern California. They're small places, sometimes just storefronts. Next question.
Hello, this has been a beautiful program, thank you. Another question for Chef Fátima or anyone else. Maybe earlier this year, I was in the market, maybe like grocery outlet or something, and I saw blue corn tortillas, and I was like, wow, $2.99, that's so cheap. I took them home, and I was like, the ingredients were written in blue on a clear bag on the blue tortilla, so I was like, it's hard to see what's in here. And then I read it, and it had blue dye.
Oh my God.
And it was like such a gross feeling, I just threw them out. So,
well, let me just say that $2.99 price was a level of self-deception on your part.
yeah, this was like my first time ever like seeing or hoping to buy blue corn tortillas. So anyway, like what can you tell us as consumers? Like what should we know about just this product, of course. Oh yeah, and then I looked at the package. It says blue corn tortillas.
Exactly. The blue is the color. It's not the corn. When they use or they spoke about the blue corn, when it's not heirloom or authentic corn, they put colorante. When we open comal, the first months, the people ask me, "Hey, this color is strange. What kind of color do you put on the masa?" And say, "No, it's the colors. It's only the corn." When you see the variety about the corn, you can saw the perfect color for los perfectos colores que la naturaleza te da. Y justamente cuando hablamos de biodiversidad, es experimentar esos colores en nuestra masa y ver la diversidad que hay en la cocina mexicana.
So the natural colors are the perfect colors, basically.
The ingredients that you're looking for on the bag are corn, water, and
Limestone.
limestone.
Yeah.
That's it.
Limestone.
There shouldn't be any
Lye. Sometimes people say
calcium hydroxide.
Yeah.
Calcium hydroxide. Calcium hydroxide.
Because the calcium es un preservativo natural. Entonces, cuando hablamos de limestone, obviamente es un preservativo, pero no estamos usando químicos. Es un ingrediente natural que es un proceso de la nixtamalización que desde hace muchísimos años lo utilizamos en las cocinas mexicanas y absolutamente es calcio que te nutre en tus huesos y es muy bueno para nuestra salud.
it's what basically allows corn to release nutrients to the human body, so you get much more of the amino acid chain than you would normally. Are we ending? Okay, we're getting kicked out now. I want to thank everyone on the panel for taking time out in the middle of the week for feeding us and sharing their brains with us. And I want to thank La Plaza de Cultura for hosting this wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Viva Los Angeles.
Arriba Los Ángeles.
That concludes our tortilla time.